Hello everyone, thanks so much for joining us today. We're delighted to be able to bring you another webinar from Candatis, and I hope that you'll find the session today useful. We're hoping to run this webinar in two parts, with today's focus being around what part Azure AD B2C can play for identity in the higher education space. And then we'll invite all attendees to a further session where we'll consider what the future technology might look like and how Entra verified ID could be adopted across the same sector. So as we normally do, Plamen and I will briefly introduce ourselves, and then we'll get right into the depths of the topic that we're looking to chat to you about today, which is, of course, creating a seamless student experience from applicant to alumni. So I'm Fiona. I'm Business Development Executive at Candatis, and I've been with the company for just over a year now. So within my role, I get to focus mostly on the higher education sector, but I do also work across a number of our other client engagements, both in the B2C side and also in the decentralised identity space. And Plamen, an exciting day for you, your first Candatis webinar. So would you like to introduce yourself too?
Thanks, Fiona. And hi, everyone. I'm Plamen Yotov, Lead Technical Architect at Candatis, specializing in Microsoft Azure AAD B2C solutions across different sectors, facilitating clients' requirements to deliver B2C solutions from various sizes. I've joined Candatis 6 months ago after more than almost 7 amazing years working in the identity space within the higher education sector in the UK. So I'm really excited to have this chat today with you, Fiona.
Perfect. An expert in the industry already, so definitely the best man for the job today. Thanks, Plamen. So I thought it might be helpful to start today by providing a bit of an overview of Candatis and what it is we do before I go ahead and put you in the hot seat, Plamen. So Candatis are a team of experts in Azure AD B2C and Microsoft Entra verified ID. We're based in Edinburgh in Scotland, although the team are generally kind of dotted about all over the UK. We do still like to get together for the odd social occasion though, and of course it's always nice to catch up with colleagues face to face when we do get the opportunity to do that. So what is it that we actually do? We're a Microsoft Gold partner, which means that we provide consultancy, development and support centred around the Microsoft technology stack. We tend to build long-term relationships with the clients that we work with, and we provide anything at all from a short discovery type workshop to multi-year projects covering all aspects of external identity. We often find that when clients come to us, they don't really know much about what it is that they need, just more that they've got a problem which needs solved somehow. And this is where we would come in and take a look at the business challenges they're trying to solve and make suggestions for improvement. And then, of course, work with them to implement those changes. I mentioned already that we work across many different business verticals, but we do have a particular focus on higher education. And that is, of course, what we're here to speak to you about today. So it'll be a nice, relaxed and informal session today where I'll ask Plamen some of the key questions around the challenges that universities face regarding identity and access management. And he'll look to explain the importance of having a solid foundation for identity management using Azure AD B2C and why this might be something that a university should consider as part of their thought processes around the experience of applicants or any other external users of their services. Just before we dive in terms of housekeeping, the session today will be recorded and then we'll send a link once the recording is ready. We've allocated some time at the end also for some questions, so please do use the Q&A box if there's anything at all that you would like to ask us. So without further ado, Plamen, I know that you've got lots of experience working in identity within the higher education sector. As you mentioned, 7 years working with one of the biggest unis in the UK. So over the years that you've spent in this field, what did you tend to find were the main pain points or kind of challenges for universities around identity and access management?
So yeah, identity and access management within the higher education has a lot of challenges. Complexity of the user profiles and roles make IAM challenges for higher education unparalleled. Just as businesses and corporations struggle with managing a diverse set of users, universities battle with an even more complex user base that includes a lot of faculties, different types of staff and student associations, applicants and alumni, visitors, external lecturers, and also visiting professors. Just to add a little bit more complexity to it, students may be in several groups, such as undergraduate, postgraduate, exchange student, short course students, and others, depending on the school or faculty they are in. Even staff can be full-time, part-time, or they may have an honorary association. Some of those user types are considered external identities for the university. Some of them, like staff and students, universities classify them as an internal identities. All those groups have different onboarding processes and different access privileges to different services, buildings, and laboratories. To support those different processes, universities and their IT departments have done a great job in the past by building a lot of custom in-house developed solutions. Unfortunately, some of them have been built in a siloed way and based on legacy systems and technologies, which increases the technical depth and become very difficult and expensive for the IT departments to support them. Very often, universities try to attract students by giving them access to the newest and most modern applications and systems, and the integration of those applications might be very challenging and time-consuming as well for universities. So what I'm trying to say is that if the identity management and the identity solution that is in place is not done properly, it can also lead to increased cost of licenses and resources. In addition to that, some of the user profiles may require different data privacy regulations that university must be compliant with, which we all know about them, and that puts even more pressure on the higher education institutions. Another one, maybe just come to my mind at the moment, is the collaboration with other universities and institutions, research organizations and external researchers from across the globe, and how to attract, how to work with them by providing seamless user experience like invitation, onboarding of those users. So as I said at the beginning, Fiona, a lot of challenges.
Yep, it definitely sounds like it, and sounds like the infrastructure for universities is definitely a very complex landscape. One of the identity solutions then that Candatis might provide, I suppose, in response to some of those challenges that you've mentioned would, of course, be an implementation of Azure AD B2C. So can you tell me a wee bit more about what this is and how it might help to solve some of those challenges?
Yes, a lot of those identity management challenges can be solved with B2C. A lot of the issues are related to the external identity management. But before we go to the details of external identity management, I would like for those who have missed our previous webinars where my colleagues talk about B2C capabilities to briefly explain what is Azure B2C. Azure B2C is Microsoft's customer external identity and access management solution, capable of supporting millions of users and billions of authentications per day. Very scalable and safe authentication platform. Provides monitoring, automatically handling threats like denial of service, password spray, or brute force attack features. The B2C platform can give you the possibility of building custom and complex user journeys to deliver seamless user experience. It is worth mentioning that Azure AD B2C is a separate service from Azure Active Directory. It is built on the same technology. It has many of its features as Azure AD, but it's designed for different purpose, which is supporting customer-facing applications and then allow anyone to sign up into those applications with no restrictions on user account. B2C also supports a federation with the internal Azure Active Directory or any other internal directories. A lot of social identity providers like Google, Microsoft, Apple, Facebook, and others. It can also federate with any other identity provider or institution for any other identity provider from different institution that supports SAML or OpenID Connect protocols. So back to the question, how B2C can help universities to overcome some of the challenges they have. The example I want to use is the identity lifecycle for students, which starts with them being prospective student or applicants. At this point, they are not part yet of the university internal identity system. So for security reasons, their credentials should not be stored in the same directory as students and staff. The one I mentioned that universities consider them as internal identities, but in a separate directory. At the same time, To attract those new students, universities are trying to give applicants access to some of their systems and resources, like online reading and library, before the time they become students. So those services and applications become customer-facing applications, not only for internal users, but for external identities as well. And here is where Azure AD can help with building custom user flows, allow applicants and other external identities to access those university resources. When we talk about external identities, it equally applies to other types of external identities like prospective staff members, visitors, visiting lecturers, external examiners, different types of summer students and short course students. So Fiona, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, absolutely, it does. Thanks, Clement. I think it's a really useful overview of what B2C actually is and all the different user types and how B2C can help to facilitate this. I suppose when we think of the sector as a whole, then there's obviously commonalities across universities in terms of some of the pain points that they experience around identity. And we know that they all have their own processes and user journeys that they want users of their services to experience. So in your mind, do you think that B2C is customizable enough to allow universities to put their own stamp on the user experience and to make themselves stand out from the competition?
Yeah, absolutely. Azure AD B2C is customizable enough to allow universities to create a unique user experience and stand out from the competition, as you said it. It provides a range of customization options, including branding, user interface customization, ability to add custom workflows and business logic. With Azure AD B2C, universities can easily create a branded login page that aligns with their existing brand identity. This includes the ability to add custom logos, colors, images to the login page, and they can customize the user interface of the login page to provide a unique and engaging user experience for all different user types. This can include customizing the layout, fonts, and text to match the university's branding and messaging. It even can integrate with any existing CDN system and automatically receive any updates on the website content like HTML pages, JavaScript files, and images. Those custom flows that Azure AD B2C can allow the university to create as part of the authentication process. This can include custom validation rules against any existing student data store, like, for example, at the beginning of an applicant journey. It can include the data validation against UCAS data. It can add multi-factor authentication options if it is a requirement, or any other security features. And of course, all these custom flows, these additional security features can help universities to better protect user accounts and data, while also providing a more streamlined and personalized user experience. As a summary, I probably just could say that Azure AD B2C can provide any university with a high degree of flexibility and customization by allowing them to create a unique user experience that align with their branding and messaging. By leveraging the customization options provided by Azure AD B2C, university can differentiate themselves from the competition and provide a superior user experience to their external identities.
Cool. Thanks very much, Clement. I suppose it definitely sounds then like it can be really customizable, which we know is something that is important to universities based on speaking to some of our clients. You mentioned there that being able to customize different user journeys based on user type, and I think that in particular is an interesting point. When you talk about users, can you explain what types of users then would be considered external to a university, and is it possible to give different people different levels of access to all the services provided?
Yeah, so I already mentioned some of them, but external users to university can include prospective students or applicants, alumni, prospective staff, visitors and contractors, external examiners and lecturers, external collaborators and researchers from other university institutions. Maybe I forgot short course students as well. So these users most of them, they need a digital identity and access to certain university resources and services, any online applications, virtual learning, events, library, databases, labs, and other collaboration tools, and maybe research projects as well. With Azure AD B2C, universities can give different level of access to different external users by allowing them to define different user types or roles based on their relationship with the university. So this can include roles such as an applicant, alumni, visitor, or external collaborator, each with their own set of permissions and access levels on an application site. University can also use Azure AD B2C to control access to specific applications or services based on the user role, based on that user role or the level of authorization. So we can make sure that external users only have access to the resources and the services they need to perform their job function or participate in the university activities. Let's not forget that something probably I didn't mention at the beginning as part of the challenges for university, but let's not forget that a single person can have multiple user types or roles at the same time. For example, a person who is both an alumnus and a researcher, or a student and member of staff for the university would have access to resources and services based on all those roles that they have at the moment. This is a massive challenge to manage for a uni. So some universities provide the users with more than one set of credentials, which we should agree that it's not the great user experience. Others try to attract students and researchers by providing them with a single digital identity. So with Azure AD B2C, university can create workflows and rules and policies to ensure that users use only one digital identity and they can be granted an appropriate levels of access based on their roles. And that their access is updated or revoked as their roles change over time. The user experience for an individual with multiple roles will depend on how the university has configured their access and how the individual interacts with the university systems and resources. In general, a university can use B2C to provide a streamlined and personalized user experience that presents only the resources and services that are relevant to each user's role. The example I gave, a user who is both an alumnus and a researcher might see different options when they log into the university's portal or application, depending on the role they select. They may also see different branding or messaging that is tailored to each role. This can help to reduce confusion and improve the overall user experience for individuals with multiple roles.
Cool, thanks, Fleming. I suppose it's clear then that there's lots of users and user types for a university to consider, and it explains why the landscape can become fairly complex fairly quickly. I just wanted to pick back up then on a point that you made at the start about siloed data stores and data for applicants and alumni often being stored in different directories. And we know from speaking to universities that they've often got over hundreds of thousands of applicants each year, but of course not all of those applicants go on to become students and therefore part of the university ecosystem. So how do we make sure that we are GDPR compliant and ensure that the unsuccessful applicant accounts are managed in line with this kind of legislation?
Very good question. Everyone worries about GDPR. So yeah, you're right. GDPR compliance applies not only to successful, but to unsuccessful applicants too. So Azure AD B2C stores and manages the data securely using access control and data encryption. It can also provide data access and deletion requests. As we all know, under GDPR, individuals have the right to access their personal data that the university stores for them and request its deletion, also known as forget me, or in B2C, it will become a forget me workflow. With Azure AD B2C, universities could provide applicants with a clear process for submitting data access and deletion requests and ensure that these requests are fulfilled in a timely and a compliant manner. Why not even instantly by using some of the B2C integration capabilities with other systems? Another way to ensure compliance is by implementing automated account deletion workflows to ensure that unsuccessful applicant accounts are managed in line with the GDPR requirements. Yeah, universities can implement automated workflows to delete these accounts after a set period of time, or just by integrating B2C with an external CRM or a student information system where the applicant's data is managed. Once the applicants are marked as unsuccessful in the source system, it can call an API and trigger a workflow in B2C to disable or delete the applicant account. Similar process can be implemented for successful applicants, where once their application is successful and they go through the student transformation process, their applicant account can be linked to their student account or just disable, which will force them to use their internal student account and have the appropriate student experience. Something I mentioned earlier about this tailored user experience by changing the branding, giving them different roles and access to the application. Another way of achieving this is we can use even Azure function to schedule an event that monitors the data in the source system, and in case of changing in the status of the account, the function can appropriately act and disable or delete the account. Or the university may want to expose an API endpoint in B2C, and then this endpoint will allow them to programmatically delete these accounts. All this can help to reduce the risk of unauthorized access to applicant data and ensure that personal data is not retained for longer than necessary. A lot of flexibility, a lot of options. So yes, B2C can ensure that we are compliant.
Perfect. It definitely sounds like that. So thanks for giving us a wee bit more information there. So it's clear that Azure AD B2C has got a definite part to play in improving the student experience overall and in centralising a lot of the data held by higher education institutions, which of course means less time consuming and manual tasks for staff and a cost saving for the university itself, which is always a good thing. When we have these kind of conversations with universities in real life, we always get that kind of moment of hesitation as they think through the headache involved in ripping out their current infrastructure to implement B2C, and it's something we always get asked about. So is that actually something that has to happen, or can B2C be built on top of systems and processes which already exist for a university?
Yeah, Azure AD B2C is flexible enough and customizable, so it can be built on top of existing systems and processes that already exist in universities. In fact, Azure AD B2C is designed to integrate with a wide range of existing identity management systems, not only the internal Azure AD, but including on-premise Active Directory, any other cloud-based identity providers like Google, Facebook, and Microsoft. In addition, Azure AD B2C provides a range of APIs and connectors that can be used to integrate with custom applications, in-house developed systems. So this can allow universities to extend their existing systems to work seamlessly with Azure AD B2C without the need for redevelopment or reconfiguration, and avoiding, of course, a big Mac migration, which a lot of people are scared of. So these highly configurable workflows in B2C can also allow us to implement most of the processes and enhance any existing processes with the new flow, and this will be done in a way that will not impact any existing or new users. So when we have these conversations with universities, we are always giving them multiple options for migration depending on the use case. But in general, once the coexistence is established, university can choose to use a tool to programmatically migrate the account from the old system to B2C, or to force or ask the user to re-register in B2C by just updating their passwords. So yeah, we can provide multiple solutions, again, depending on the use case.
Perfect. It sounds like there's definitely an option then that suits everyone, which is great. Sometimes it's more digestible for universities or indeed any organisation to take kind of smaller steps as they move through the process of achieving the end goal, which I suppose helps it feel less daunting. And that's definitely something that we at Candatis can kind of help clients plan for along the way. So finally, from me, it's been brilliant to talk through the detail of identity and access management within the higher education space, and obviously something that both of us have a really keen interest in. But one thing that I always find really helpful is to kind of share some use cases with clients so that they can see the types of things that other people within the industry that they're working in are actually implementing. So I wondered if it's possible just to briefly run through a couple of use cases to demonstrate how we would look to use the technology that you've chatted about today in practice.
So the most common use case for universities coming to us asking about a solution is to provide a solution for the applicants. This is where universities want to attract more students, and before they become students, they need to have a good applicant experience. So common use case is an authentication service for applicants, which allows them to create an account and access different applications. Part of the B2C capabilities is the good integration and federation with any social identity provider. So an applicant can create an account in B2C by using a local account in B2C, or to decide to use any of their existing social identity providers, or even if the university has a relationship with different schools, they can continue using their school accounts as for creating their applicant account. As part of the user journeys that we usually build is exposing APIs or integrating with external systems like any student information system that stores the applicants' data. This data can be part of the applicant registration flow. So the applicants will have to input some data in order to verify that they claim to be. B2C can be integrated with any external identity verification service. So the applicants can go through an identity verification service, and by providing their passports or any other ID documents, they can assure who they are. As part of the registration flows, we implement email validation flow that user confirms that they own this email. Account creation, B2C can be used as a starting point for creating the account in the internal Azure Active Directory. So when an application for an applicant is successful and they become students, this flow can be used to create an account in the internal Azure Active Directory, disable the account in B2C, and they can start using the new internal Azure Active Directory account. Some of the applications, may be exposed or may be accessible by applicants, so those applications should be integrated with B2C. Some applications support multiple identity providers at the same time, and they can be integrated with B2C and Azure Active Directory. If an application doesn't support multiple identity providers, the application can be integrated with B2C, and then students or any other internal university identity can use the federation between Azure Active Directory and B2C to access those applications. So that's the most common use case that we get from universities. Then the solution can be extended, and additional workflows in B2C can be built to support the other external identities that we talked about earlier. I hope this is a good use case, Fiona.
It is indeed. Thank you very much. Yeah, no, it's been a really, really informative session. And thank you, as always, Planning, for patiently continuing to put up with me asking you endless questions about digital identity. Much as I'd like to, I can't promise you this will be my last, but I'm sure that'll come as no surprise. Cool. So I'm just going to take a quick second to check in with Sandra and see if there's any questions from the Q&A at all from anyone else this afternoon.
Thank you, Fiona. Yep, we are running out of time soon, but there is one question that came through directly to us. I think it's directed at Plamen, so it goes, how can we ensure that the identities of our students are secure? Plamen.
Identities of our students. Well, we're talking about external identities here, but it is still critical to store those accounts and manage their data securely. So as I mentioned at the beginning, B2C is built on the same technology as Azure AD, and it provides the same security capabilities as multi-factor authentication, which can be enabled for all external user types, different passwords policies. These different password policies can be different for each user type, monitoring of sign-in activities and detecting suspicious behavior. I mentioned automatically handling threats as well. Conditional access policies is also available in B2C, which can allow us to control access to resources based on a user's location, device, and any other factors. And of course, the data encryption. Azure B2C provides data encryption features as well as Azure AD, and that allows us to protect the student identities and data at rest and in transit. All those capabilities provided by B2C are the best practices that can help all universities to ensure that the identities, not only staff and students, but also the external identities, are secure.
Perfect. That sounds like many layers of additional security. If you have one more time for one more question, there is one here about, can you explain a little bit more on how licensing works for Azure B2C?
The licensing for B2C works on monthly active users or MAU model, where universities pay for the number of active users per month. An active user is a user that has authenticated at least once in the last month. There are two main pricing tiers for Azure AD B2C. The first one is so-called the free tier, and this tier allows universities to use Azure AD B2C for up to 50,000 monthly active users at no cost. And the second one is the paid tier. So any university that exceeds this 50,000 monthly active users will have to pay a license for each active user on top of the 50,000 free ones. All that information, together with the Premium 1 and Premium 2 features, is very well explained on the Microsoft website, which we probably could include in the presentation. But I can say one more thing, that this is one of the most attractive licensing models comparing to its competitors.
Thank you very much for that. And we can definitely share more licensing information in a follow-up email. So that's all the questions in the chat box just now. If you have any more, you can ask our presenters later, but I'll hand over to Fiona now for some conclusions.
Perfect. Thanks very much, Sandra. Just to say that I hope our attendees enjoyed the session today, and of course that has left you with some kind of food for thought around this topic. Thanks again also to Plamen for sharing all your knowledge and expertise in this area. As I alluded to at the start, the webinar was the first of a two-part series looking at identity within the higher education space, and what we're going to do is continue the discussion the next time with a focus on what future technologies are available, such as Entra Verified ID, and I'll bring along one of my other colleagues who works in this space to tell us a wee bit more about how that might look across the higher education landscape and some of the benefits that verifiable credentials can bring. So lots of exciting stuff still to come. As Sandra said, we'll send around a copy of the slides today and a copy of the recording to all attendees. And if anyone's got any further questions at all, or if you would like to arrange an informal chat about your own identity requirements, please do just drop me an email. My email address is shown on the screen there. And thank you very much again for joining us today, and hopefully we'll see you at the next webinar. Thank you very much.